So since we last spoke, there have been updates about Iryna Zarutska that I referred to in the prior video. If you want to see all the other details, that will be in the prior video, which I'll link down below. Regardless, since then, in that video, I mentioned to you how a lot of publications, online journals, newspapers, whatever, really weren't talking about it until the very last minute. Because let us remember that all of this happened at the end of August. Conveniently, nobody said anything until they kind of maybe had to, in my opinion. And here there are a couple things that I think we should really note about all of that. So it says that, and this will also be linked down below, that some local lawmakers on Wednesday said the killing called for expanding Charlotte's police force, mental health services, and staff at the district attorney's office. Others blamed democratic policies and quote-unquote woke narratives and called for overhauling the state's criminal justice system. Let's be clear, crime is crime, and Democrats have chosen to side with criminals. Jason Simmons, the chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party, said at a press conference, their policies of appeasement, their weak on crime policies, their open door and revolving door policies in our criminal justice system and jails have allowed murderers back on the streets time and time again. Speaking at a press conference at the Charlotte Transit Station, Charlotte Councilman Malcolm Graham, a Democrat, appeared to suggest that the Democratic politicians bore some of the blame. Let me be clear, we also must close the revolving door for repeat offenders, he said. Too many crimes that disrupt our neighborhoods and transit system are committed by individuals who cycle through the system over and over again. So this is another thing. Now, if we look at this crime as a crime, much like we did in the prior video where it is a murder, that is all there is to it. It's a murder. Murder is wrong, end of, very basic. However, that being said, there have been a lot of points of discourse in this crime that touch on race, that touch on political standing, and while I do think these are conversations we can have, at the very base, the reason why this is disgusting, the reason why any average Joe should think that this is a problem is because this was, for all intents and purposes, if you ask me, a public execution. Being a public execution makes it jarring, makes it scary, makes it alarming, but also makes it a massive, massive statement. So, it being a public execution for me is the prime thing because yes, we can audit all the other layers later, but the reality is like you killed someone on public transport, you let them bleed out, and for all the people who actually saw the full video, which I did, you see how she bleeds out. That's not something you come back from, okay? So when we add in the race, the political stuff, sure, but at the very base of the entire thing, it's you stabbed someone to death. Nobody really jumped in until later on, I'll say that. And this was something that came up in the first video where I was wondering who's going to intervene, who's going to help. Basically, no one helps except for once she's stabbed and once there's like a pooling of blood. And the pooling of blood is something significant there when you see it. It's really just so much blood. And then people intervene and jump in and try, to stop her from bleeding out, basically. But there are some people you see on the train who do nothing. And again, this is not to blame them, but this is, there are many factors here, so they are also a factor, right? How did you die? How were you not saved? Well, you were stabbed, sure, but then you also weren't saved. Those are two sides of it, and that's not blaming any particular individual. It's just what it is. So on that note, there is a lot of discussion about, politics and Republicans and Democrats, and while that is a valid discussion for people to have, that's not one I super care to have simply because in my mind, we know what's right and what's wrong, and it really transcends any type of politics, so I don't really think there's any point in blaming anyone. What I will say, though, is there is an issue with all of the judges who saw this person and just decided, you know what, this doesn't seem jail-worthy. And it's like, okay, well, there are 14 other offenses. Like, why does this not seem jail-worthy? So I will say that I do think that there is a problem with leniency. I do think there is a problem with appeasement, and that's not, for me, in this case, it might be a political thing, but for me, that's just very much based on fact, where there are times where people just go free for no real reason or any criteria you can actually determine, and it's just wrong. And this goes back to right and wrong. It has nothing to do, for me, what side of the political spectrum you fall on, right? But that is a conversation nonetheless. And I also think that that is used as a talking point because there are a lot of people who are being like, oh, how Republican of you, oh, how Democratic of you. And at the end of the day, I don't really think that's productive. I just want to talk about what the issue is. And granted, you can put different lenses on it, but I really don't think we're going anywhere if we're just going to say, it's all the Republicans' fault. It's all the Democrats' fault. Like, let's deal with the issue. So another part of this story that is relatively new that people are also talking about now has to do with what the criminal actually says once he stabs her. Because, like I said, before the footage would basically stop, the video we had, it was censored. So the moment he like raises his hand to stab her, it stops. Like I said, now I also saw the full footage, so I know what happens. And obviously she's stabbed in the neck many times. She keels over. She bleeds out profusely. And he walks up and down saying, I got that white girl, or something along those lines. So also now this is being labeled as a racial murder, which could very well be. And when I say could very well be, is that we need to remember that this is a mentally ill person. So what they intended to do, their intended message, I don't know what any of that is. Also because we need to remember who it is we're dealing with. And I don't know if any of it is really that clear and concise. So it could be, and it could very well not be. We have no idea, especially, again, because we're dealing with someone who not only is mentally unwell, but as far as we know, hasn't really been treated. The only thing he's dealt with is being in prison for 5 years straight. I don't know if there was any psych help in there. And last of all, in terms of details about Zarutska herself, Lauren O. Newton, a lawyer for Zarutska's family, said in a statement that the 23-year-old recently moved in with her partner and was taking classes to improve her English. She describes Zarutska as a kind and hardworking and deeply loved by family and close friends. So amidst all of this, amidst all the intended political upheaval that there is, we really are just talking about a person who left their state, who was in war and just was doing their best. This was someone who just came off a shift at a pizza joint, who was working on their English, who didn't even speak to this murderer, who just sat down and they paid a price that is inconceivable, and for what? And if you are one of the unfortunate people who did see the footage, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about when this was absolutely senseless. We already knew that, but especially when you see the footage, it just does not add up. And I will say, trigger warning to anyone who wants to check it, there just is so much blood, so it's something you should look out for. But at the same time, this explains, quote unquote, a lot, because it is that senseless. And until we have a censored video, it's very hard to believe, oh yeah, someone is just being killed for nothing. And that's difficult to digest, because why? You have all these whys, all these question marks. Here you just see it all, and it's like, okay, so there is nothing, so there is nothing else, so we didn't miss anything. And that is equally difficult to digest. Anyway, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. This is the last update I'll do on it. I will link the GoFundMe again, if that's something you're interested in. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.